She texted, I'm taking a mental health day. Can you call my boss and say I'm sick? For the fifth Friday in a row. I replied, I think you should call. She raged. You don't support me. Then I sent her screenshots of her Instagram stories from all 5 mental health days, all at bars and brunches. When HR called her in for a meeting. Original post. I, 28 male, work in IT support for a mid-sized logistics company. Desk job, decent benefits, nothing glamorous. I troubleshoot servers, reset passwords, and listen to people describe their computer problems in ways that make me want to gently weep. But stable. I show up every day. That detail matters. My girlfriend, now ex, worked as a junior recruiter at a staffing agency. Decent gig, decent pay, roughly $52,000. She'd been there about a year and a half when all of this started. She liked the work fine, but hated the structure. Specifically, she hated Fridays. Not in a TGIF can't wait for the weekend way. In a I physically cannot bring myself to go to work on the last day of the week way. It started about 2 months into our relationship. We'd been together about 7 months total at that point. One Friday morning, she texted me, Hey babe, I'm really not feeling it today. Can you call my boss and tell him I woke up with a stomach bug? I don't want to fake the voice myself. I thought it was weird, but I didn't overthink it. People have bad days. I called, said she was under the weather. Her boss said no problem. Done. The second time was 3 weeks later. Same deal. Friday. Mental health day. Can you call? I did it. This time I noticed she was being pretty casual about it. She texted me at like 8:45 a.m., which meant she'd already decided not to go before even getting out of bed. But again, I didn't push it. The third time, I started paying attention. It was a Friday. She texted, I literally cannot today. My anxiety is so bad. Can you please call and say I have a migraine? By now, I noticed the rotation, stomach bug, migraine, not feeling well. She was cycling through excuses like a playlist on shuffle. I called, but this time I asked her afterward, Hey, are you okay? This is the 3rd Friday you've missed. If you're struggling, maybe you should talk to someone. She said, I am talking to someone. You, and you're supposed to support me. 4th Friday. Same text, almost verbatim. Mental health day. Call my boss. I called, but I checked her Instagram that afternoon. Not because I was suspicious, because I was bored at work and scrolling. And there it was. Her story. Posted at 1:30 p.m. on a Friday she called out sick for. A mimosa. A brunch spread. A selfie with her best friend with the caption, Friday, fuel sun, clinking glasses. Location tagged at a restaurant I recognized. I scrolled back. I never really paid attention to her Friday stories before, but now I went through them. Week 3. A cocktail at a rooftop bar. Posted at 3 p.m. on a Friday. Week 2. A photo of her and 2 friends at a day spa. Face mask on, champagne in hand. Self-care Fridays hit different. Week 1. Brunch. Different restaurant, same vibe. Eggs Benedict, a Bloody Mary, and the caption, Healing looks like this. Every single mental health day I'd called in for her was a girl's day out. Everyone. I didn't say anything that night. I went home. She was on the couch watching Netflix, and she said, Thanks for covering for me today, babe. I really needed it. I said, No problem. And I started screenshotting. I went back through her Instagram stories archive, the one she'd saved the highlights, and found the posts from all 4 Fridays. Screenshotted each one with a timestamp visible. Saved them to a folder on my phone. Not because I had a plan yet, just because my gut told me to keep receipts. 5th Friday, 8:52 a.m. The text came in, Can you call? Taking a mental health day. My anxiety is really bad this morning. I stared at that text for about 2 full minutes. Then I typed, I think you should call yourself this time. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then, Are you serious, RN? Yeah. If you're not feeling well, you should tell your boss directly. It'll sound more genuine. I asked you to do one thing. Why are you making this difficult? I called 4 times. I think it's reasonable to ask you to handle it yourself. Then the call came. Not to her boss. To me. She was heated. You don't support me. You know I struggle with anxiety, and you're literally refusing to help me with 1 phone call. Do you have any idea how hard it is for me to talk to my boss when I'm in this headspace? I said, "Your headspace last Friday involved mimosas at that place with the blue awning." Silence. "Excuse me. And the Friday before, that was a rooftop bar. And before that was a spa. And before that was brunch. I've seen your Instagram stories from every single Friday I called you in sick." Long pause. Then, "Are you stalking my social media now? It's public. You posted it. You tagged locations. You used hashtags. Those were after I took the morning to decompress. I went out in the afternoon because I felt better. You asked me to tell your boss you had a migraine at 9 a.m. By 1 p.m., you were doing tequila shots. They were margaritas, and that's not the point. It's exactly the point. You've been using me to lie to your employer so you could go party on Fridays. That stops today." She told me I was being controlling and unsupportive and that I didn't understand mental health. I told her I take mental health seriously, which is why it bothered me that she was using it as a cover story for bottomless brunch. She hung up on me. She did not call her boss that Friday. She just didn't show up. Update 1. So here's where things got messy. After our phone call, she didn't talk to me for 3 days. Full silent treatment. No texts, no calls. I figured she was cooling off and we'd talk when she was ready. Sunday night, she finally texted, "We need to talk. Come over." I went to her apartment. She was sitting at her kitchen table with her arms crossed, which is her "I've prepared a speech" posture. She told me 3 things. 1. I had violated her trust by going through her social media looking for evidence against her. I reminded her it was public. She said that was beside the point. 2. I was weaponizing mental health stigma by questioning her reasons for taking days off. I told her there's no stigma in what I said. The stigma is in using anxiety as a fake excuse while posting champagne selfies. 3. And this one was new. She told me her best friend agreed with her. Her best friend had apparently said I was being toxic and policing her body and her choices. Her best friend, by the way, was the person she'd been brunching with on at least 3 of the 5 Fridays. So her primary character witness was her co-conspirator. I sat there and let her finish. Then I said, "Are you going to keep doing this? The Friday thing?" She said, "I shouldn't have to justify how I manage my well-being to you." "You're not managing your well-being. You're skipping work and having me lie about it. It's the same thing." "It's really, really not." She told me if I couldn't support her, we were fundamentally incompatible. I said maybe we were. She didn't like that answer. I left. We didn't break up officially that night, but it was close. Now, the thing I didn't anticipate. The following Monday, her boss called her into a meeting. Not because of me. I want to be extremely clear about this. I did not contact her employer. I didn't send screenshots. I didn't tip anyone off. What happened was simpler and dumber. She tagged the restaurant in her story the previous Friday. Her Instagram was public, and one of her coworkers, a woman on her same team, followed her on Instagram and saw the stories. This coworker had been covering my ex's Friday workload for weeks. Every time my ex called out, this coworker inherited her open candidate files, her scheduled interviews, her inbox. And this coworker had been doing it without complaint, until she saw the brunch photos on a day she'd been at her desk handling double the work. The coworker didn't go to HR. She went to their team lead, showed her the Instagram stories with the timestamps matching the sick days. The team lead went to HR. Monday morning, my ex got called into a meeting with HR and her direct manager. They asked about her attendance. She tried the anxiety line. They asked if she had documentation, a therapist's note, anything from a doctor. She didn't, because she didn't have a therapist and she'd never seen a doctor about anxiety. She'd been using mental health as a phrase, not as a diagnosis. HR told her that based on her attendance record and the social media activity that had been flagged, they were putting her on a formal performance improvement plan. 30 days. Any unexcused absence would result in termination. They also told her that calling in sick to go to brunch was a violation of company policy and that they were documenting it. She called me Monday afternoon in tears. "I'm on a PIP. Because of you. I didn't do anything. You told me to stop. You made me feel guilty. And now it's all falling apart. Your coworker saw your Instagram. That's not my fault. You put this in my head. If you hadn't made me feel bad about it, I would have been more careful about posting." Let me just repeat that. Her takeaway was not, "I should stop skipping work." It was, "I should stop posting about skipping work." The lesson she extracted from his situation was to be a more discreet liar, and she blamed me for not warning her sooner. I said, "I'm not your fall guy for this. I called your boss 4 times because you asked me to. I stopped because it was wrong. Everything that's happening now is because of what you did, not what I said." She said, "If you really loved me, you would have just kept calling." That's the line that ended it for me. Not an argument, not a blow-up, just that one sentence. If you really loved me, you would have just kept calling. Translation: if you really loved me, you'd help me commit fraud indefinitely without question. I said, "I think we're done." She said, "Fine, but don't come crawling back when you realize what you lost." I said, "I lost the privilege of calling your boss every Friday. I'll cope." Update 2. Okay, so it's been about 2 weeks since the breakup and the PIP situation, and things escalated in ways I genuinely didn't expect. First, my ex did not handle the PIP well. Instead of putting her head down and doing the 30 days clean, she took a combative approach. She apparently told her manager that the PIP was retaliation for taking mental health days and threatened to file a complaint with the state labor board. Her manager told her she was welcome to file whatever she wanted, but the PIP stood. Her coworker, the one who'd flagged the Instagram stories, was moved to a different pod to reduce tension, which my ex interpreted as proof that the coworker had done something wrong, not her. She texted me about a week after the breakup. "Just so you know, I'm fighting this. My friend said I have a case for mental health discrimination." I didn't respond. She texted again, "You're going to feel really stupid when I win." I left it on read. Now here's what happened behind the scenes. Her best friend, the brunch buddy, the one who'd called me toxic, started distancing herself. Fast. Because here's the thing about being someone's alibi. It's fun until there are consequences. When my ex told her about the PIP and said she might need her to back her up if she filed a complaint, her best friend suddenly remembered she had her own career to worry about. She told my ex she didn't want to get involved in a work thing and that she couldn't risk being dragged into an HR investigation. My ex was furious. She told me, through a long, unsolicited text, that her best friend was abandoning her and that everyone in her life was letting her down. I was letting her down by not calling her boss. Her coworker was letting her down by reporting her. Her best friend was letting her down by not wanting to perjure herself. Everyone was the problem except the person who'd been skipping work to drink margaritas. Then her mom got involved, because apparently the gravitational pull of a mother defending her daughter's poor decisions is a universal constant. Her mom called me. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail that said, "I know my daughter isn't perfect, but she told me you refused to help her when she was struggling, and now she might lose her job." A real partner supports their other half, even when it's inconvenient. I raised her to expect better. I saved the voicemail. Didn't respond. But then her mom did something else. She called my ex's company, the front desk. She asked to speak to the HR manager. She introduced herself as my ex's mother and said her daughter was being discriminated against for having a mental health condition and that the family was exploring legal options. HR documented the call and told my ex about it the next day. Apparently, the conversation with HR went something like, "HR, your mother called our office today. My ex, she what? HR, she threatened legal action on your behalf. We need to ask, did you authorize this?" My ex, "No, I didn't. She did that on her own." HR, we want to be clear. Any further contact from family members regarding internal HR matters will be documented and may be considered harassment. My ex called her mom and apparently screamed at her for 20 minutes. Her mom, for what I gathered through the grapevine, didn't see the problem. She told my ex she was fighting for her and that my ex should be grateful to have a mother who shows up. Meanwhile, the performance improvement plan was running and my ex was not improving. She showed up every day for the first 2 weeks, which shouldn't be noteworthy, but apparently was. But her work quality had dropped. She was distracted, resentful, and openly hostile toward the co-worker who'd flagged her absences. She made passive-aggressive comments in team meetings. She CC'd her manager on emails that didn't require it, apparently as some kind of documentation strategy that made no sense. Her team lead told HR she was creating a hostile dynamic and that 2 other team members had complained about her attitude. Week 3 of the PIP, she called in sick on a Wednesday. A real sick day. Apparently, she actually had a cold. But it didn't matter. HR flagged it as an unexcused absence because she didn't provide a doctor's note, which the PIP required for all absences. She argued that requiring a note for a cold was excessive. HR said the PIP terms were clear and she'd signed them. She was terminated the following Monday. Not for the one Wednesday absence, for failure to meet PIP requirements combined with the behavioral issues. They gave her 2 weeks severance and walked her out. She texted me that evening. I lost my job. Are you happy now? I said, I'm sorry that happened, but I didn't do this. She said, you started this. All of it. If you just made the call that 5th Friday, none of this would have happened. I said, if you just gone to work, none of this would have happened either. She didn't respond. Update 3. Final. It's been about 6 weeks since she was fired and a little over 2 months since we broke up. Here's the final picture. My ex filed for unemployment. She was initially denied because the termination was for cause, violating a performance improvement plan. She appealed. I don't know the outcome and honestly don't care. That's between her and the state. She also went through with threatening legal action, sort of. She consulted a lawyer about filing a mental health discrimination claim against her former employer. The lawyer, from what her sister told a mutual friend of ours, asked her 3 questions. Did she have a documented mental health diagnosis? No. Had she ever requested a formal accommodation under ADA? No. Had she provided any medical documentation during the PIP process? No. The lawyer told her she didn't have a case. She argued. The lawyer apparently said something along the lines of, Instagram stories at brunch are not evidence of a disability. She didn't retain the lawyer. Her best friend, the brunch co-conspirator, fully bailed. They had a falling out about 2 weeks after the firing when my ex asked to borrow $800 for rent. Her best friend said no. My ex said that was proof she never really cared. Her best friend said, I cared enough to tell you 6 months ago to stop posting your sick days on social media, and you told me to mind my business. They haven't spoken since. That detail hit me when I heard it, because it meant someone had already warned her. Before me, before the coworker, before HR. Her own best friend had told her this was going to catch up with her, and she'd ignored it. She'd been given multiple off-ramps and blew past every single one. Her mom continued to be her mom. She posted something on Facebook, a vague paragraph about how the system punishes women for prioritizing their mental wellness and how corporate America doesn't deserve my daughter. It got about 15 likes, mostly from family members. One of her ex-coworkers apparently saw it and commented, she called in sick to go to brunch 5 times. That's not prioritizing wellness. The comment was deleted within an hour, but not before people screenshotted it. Because of course they did. Her sister, the one I'd only met twice, reached out to me about a month after everything. Sent me a DM that said, hey, I know this is weird, but I want to say I don't blame you for any of this. She's been like this since high school. She got fired from a summer job at 16 for the same thing. Nobody in the family is surprised. I told her thanks and that I hope things got better for their family. She said they won't, but I appreciate it. The coworker who'd flagged the Instagram stories, I actually ran into her randomly about 3 weeks ago at a coffee shop. She recognized me from a photo my ex had shown her during the relationship. She came up to me and said, hey, you're her ex, right? I braced myself, but she just said, I want you to know I didn't report her to be mean. I was just tired. I was covering her work every Friday for 2 months, and she was posting brunch photos while I ate lunch at my desk. I snapped. I said, you don't owe me an explanation. But for what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. She said, she told everyone on the team that you were the one who called HR. I didn't. I know. But that's the story she's telling. Of course it is. That's the thing about people who refuse to take responsibility. They always need a villain. First it was me for not making the call. Then it was the coworker for reporting her. Then it was HR for enforcing policy. Then it was the lawyer for not taking her case. Then it was her best friend for not lending her money. The common denominator in every chapter of this disaster was her, and she was the only one who couldn't see it. The honest part, the part one don't love, is that I enabled it for a month. For phone calls. For lies to her boss. I did that. I let myself get used as a tool because it was easier to call than to confront. And when I finally said no, she treated it like betrayal because I'd set the precedent that I'd always say yes. I think about that sometimes. Not with guilt exactly, more with the kind of clarity you get when you realize a pattern you were part of. I was the path of least resistance, and when I stopped being easy, the whole system broke. I'm back to my routine. Work, home, weekends. I've been eating better since the breakup. Not because I'm on some self-improvement arc, but because I stopped ordering takeout for two. My grocery bill went down $200 a month, which is depressing math, but honest math. My buddy at work asked me last week if I'd started dating again. I said, not yet. He said, what's your deal breaker now? I said, anyone who asked me to call their boss. He thought I was joking. I wasn't.